Warmly welcome to the webinar Work Environment and Inclusion for Persons with Disabilities. My name is Noora Tobiasson and I work as a project manager at NIVA. This webinar is arranged by NIVA Education and the Nordic Welfare Center, both institutions under the Nordic Council of Ministers. Together, we support Nordic cooperation by sharing knowledge and strengthening networks across the region. At NIVA, our mission is to gather knowledge from across the Nordic region and transform research into advanced courses, conferences, and webinars within occupational health and safety. The Nordic Welfare Center works broadly to strengthen welfare across the Nordic region through research, knowledge dissemination, and network building. In the disability field, the center serves as the secretariat for the Council of Nordic Cooperation on Disability and supports the Nordic Programme for Cooperation on Disability Issues 2023 to 27, closely linked to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. A key focus is Article 27, which affirms the right to work on equal terms and the duty of employers to provide reasonable accommodation. In 2025 to 26, the Nordic Welfare Center is running a project on inclusive working life for persons with disabilities, funded by the Nordic Labour Market Committee. The project will collect and share good practices, strengthen data on the implementation of Article 27 in the Nordic region, and promote broad cooperation between stakeholders to enhance labour market participation. In today's webinar, we are joined by the following experts: Maria Norstedt, Associate Professor at Malmö University in Sweden; Per Germundsson, Associate Professor at Malmö University in Sweden; Till Halbach, Senior Researcher at the Norwegian Computing Center; Sif Holst, Vice Chair at the Disabled People's Organizations in Denmark; and Anki Elken, Secretary General at Universal Design in the Workplace in Sweden. With that, let's get started. Our first presentation today is by Maria Norstedt and Per Germundsson from Malmö University, and the topic is Disability and the Work Environment. Maria and Per, please go ahead.
Yes, today me and Per will present the findings of a knowledge compilation that was commissioned by the Swedish Agency for Work Environment Expertise, and well, this was conducted by me and Per. And the background to this knowledge compilation is based on the Swedish government's labour market strategy from or between 2021 to 2025. And this strategy sets out goals for a work environment that prevent ill and accidents, counteracts exclusion from working life, considers individuals' varying conditions, and contributes to the development of both individuals and organizations. However, as shown in this picture by Statistics Sweden, only 53% of people with disabilities are employed. You can see that here in this, compared to 80% in the general population. And the employment rate is even lower among people with reduced work capacity, where it is 46% compared to 75% among persons without such limitations. Another reason for this study was the relative lack of research on disability and working life environment. Existing studies often focus on labour market interventions, while the work environment of people with disabilities who are already employed is examined less frequently. The aim of this study was to identify and synthesize research. So this was made in response to this gap which the Swedish Agency for Work Environment Expertise identified. So they identified a need to map and summarize research on work environment for individuals with psychological, intellectual, and physical disabilities. And today we will focus on 3 of these 4 questions that we were asked to investigate. And those questions are: what are the main challenges identified in the work environment of people with disabilities? And what are the main promoting factors identified in the work environment for people with disabilities? And what characterizes, according to existing research, an inclusive workplace, that is a work environment that people with disabilities themselves perceive as inclusive? And we will not address this 3rd question in detail, which concerns how the work environment for people with disabilities is affected by organizational level factors, such as similarities and differences in organizational size, structure, leadership, and staff education, as the research did not yield consistent findings here. And the first thing I would like to say something about is this conceptual framework, how we see impairment and disability. How we define these concepts is a central issue. And we have chosen to follow the definitions provided by the Swedish National Board of Health and Welfare, which defines impairment as a reduction in physical, psychological, or intellectual functional ability, which may result from an illness, a condition, or a congenital or acquired injury. And with disability, disability refers to the limitation that an impairment may impose on an individual's interactions with their environment, such as difficulties in daily life, limited participation in working life, social relationships, or democratic processes. And our approach is based on the perspective that disability arises in the interaction between the individual and the environment. So this is an approach that is widely used among disability researchers and allow us to consider both the social and the biological conditions and experiences of the individual. So a few words on the methodology of this knowledge compilation. The search strategy was developed in collaboration with librarians at the Mid-Sweden University, and searches were made in databases, Scopus and Web of Science, covering the period between 2013 to 2023. And we also included relevant literature reviews and articles on mental disabilities or psychological disabilities. And the languages that we included were, the articles had to be written in English, Danish, Norwegian, or Swedish. And the full text, we only looked at full text articles in peer-reviewed journals. And the exclusion criteria, we did only look on articles that were based on the working life context, and we excluded articles where it wasn't any empirical material in the studies. So also wrong type of publications, for example, book chapters or conference papers, or studies that focused on policy and legislation, because it would be harder to transfer across different national contexts. We also excluded studies on predictive factors and work environment that would lead to ill health or disability. And as you can see here, even though we included mental disabilities, we choose to exclude studies on common mental health problem, and also articles on recruitment and rehabilitation processes, and also testing and evaluation of specific tools and methods. And we also excluded studies on consequences of normal aging and articles that could be seen as studies on sheltered workshops.
I'm sorry for being late, and also leaving Maria with the presentation with the parts that I was supposed to do. But I can do this this slide by telling you first that we found a bit more than 4,000 articles when we looked in the databases, and we made a check on duplicates, which left us with 3,029. And we screened all these abstracts, and we excluded pretty many. We were left with 260 full text articles. So some of the abstracts show that they didn't really cover what the title suggested. So we looked at all those articles, and we screened them, and we kept 109 that we wanted to check an extra quality check on, and excluded a few, and we are left with 105 full text articles. So that's...
Yes, and the first question we were supposed to study had to do with challenges in the work environment. And these are the themes that we identified as challenges. So the first one was demands that are too high or too low. We saw in these studies that both too high and too low challenges can both affect health and job satisfaction negatively. For example, in a few studies, individuals with intellectual disabilities reported that tasks that they experienced as boring could be demotivating. Another challenge was lack of stability and routines. For example, individuals with diabetes may need consistent lunch breaks to manage their insulin, while those with autism or intellectual disabilities may require clear instructions and predictable schedules. Another challenge was lack of flexibility, which includes having control or limited control over where, when, and how tasks are performed. And we often tend to associate flexibility with remote working. However, while remote working can be helpful, it can also lead to isolation, according to the studies. Lack of knowledge and experience was also a challenge, where employers who have previously hired people with disabilities tend to be more positive and better prepared. Discrimination and lack of recognition. Here we saw in the studies that feeling valued and treated equally is essential, and we could see that invisible disabilities are often less recognized or acknowledged. We also saw a challenge in the lack of accommodations, and this includes physical adjustments and adjustments to tasks. A lack of these can hinder and perform both performance and inclusion. And other challenges related to accommodations were that some employees hesitate to change roles due to fear of losing existing accommodations and the trust built with their current managers. So in a few studies, the authors talked about not only glass ceilings, but also glass walls within organization that there was a risk of people with disabilities being locked in the organization. And finally, we saw a challenge when it came to being open about one's disability, which in the articles were often referred to as disclosure dilemmas, where individuals may fear stigma, discrimination, or job loss if they disclose their disability. And at the same time, managers and HR professionals may lack the knowledge to offer appropriate support if disabilities are not disclosed.
So we also had a question about promoting factors in the work environment, and to some extent they kind of reflect those that are challenges, but that is not. They are not exactly the same, the opposites, so to say. So we have some points here. I'll go through them pretty quickly so we don't take too much time. But stability and routines are often asked for, well-structured tasks and maybe work hours and so on. And also flexibility, which might seem like perhaps a contradiction, but it could be about work schedules and working hours or and so on. So it also depends on the person's what the individual needs. Matching a job and person fit, that you have a job that puts you in the right place, so to say. Your skills are used and that you are interested in your job. Active and positive leadership was a promoting factor. So that is about showing respect and give praise and so on, so that you have an active and positive leadership. Also the culture in the workplace, that you feel that it's inclusive and positive, which of course has to do with the leaders, but also with your colleagues and so on. The knowledge among colleagues and managements, and that also was promoting if there was knowledge among those persons. Recognition and being valued, so that you got to be treated like other and being trusted and so on. And you have this support in the workplace that you need. It could be made in different ways. It could be social support or maybe a job coach and so on. It depends. Accessibility, yes, physical accessibility, that you really have possibility to access your workplace. And receiving accommodations that you need, of course, and last but not least, access to technical support if that is needed from you. For instance, tables that are adjustable and so on, and computer equipment. So we also had one question that touched upon inclusive workplace. If we check what the people with disabilities say themselves, it's pretty much the same, but it's about supportive workplace and that you get what you need and that you have this supportive leaders and colleagues. Active and positive leadership, that's part of it. Receiving recognition and being valued for what you're doing as a valued employee, equal to the others. Knowledge, again, among colleagues and management, and receiving the accommodations that you need. So this is what they have expressed themselves in the articles that we have read here.
Yes, so to conclude, it was quite challenging to draw conclusions from all of these reviewed studies, as the nature of barriers and opportunities often depend on the type of disability, workplace, and job tasks. And these 105 studies were covering all different types of workplaces and job tasks and many disabilities. So the relational perspective on disability acknowledges that these various factors interact and vary depending on the context. But despite this complexity, our knowledge compilation identifies several overarching patterns, which this picture symbolizes. And the first one is that the individual's needs must be in focus. This is the most central question. And there is no one-size-fits-all solution. People may have multiple disabilities and their needs can change over time. And this is, of course, closely connected with the importance of flexibility, which should be based on the individual's needs. For example, remote work may be beneficial for some, but isolating for others. And accommodations and support are critical. However, many employers underestimate the impact of accommodations. And we could see that a common reason for this is that they think accommodations are too costly. And at the same time, disclosure dilemmas often prevent individuals from accessing the support that they think they need. And of course, leadership is important here as well. It matters. Inclusive leadership involves providing reasonable adjustment, first of all, but also fostering a supportive culture and recognizing employee contributions. And many managers' experiences and knowledge of disability reduces perceived barriers. And we could also see in these articles a common pattern where they said that colleague support is vital. Practical and emotional support from colleagues enhances a sense of inclusion and recognition. And recognition is key. Feeling valued and treated equally encourages employees to seek support when needed and reduces working when sick. However, we also saw that many studies reported how individuals experience discrimination, stigma, and negative attitudes. And these are, of course, clear signs of a lack of recognition in many workplaces.
I have to unmute my microphone. That's better. So to conclude our presentation, we noted some knowledge gaps and some perhaps suggestions for future research, and we will not stay too long in that, but we would like to look up about the actual costs in the Swedish context, because this would also see if this, what we have found in the international study, is also how it is in Sweden. So we could look at potential lock-in effects. So we need some longitudinal studies, follow-ups, and so on. We didn't see much studies about technical aids and digitalization and AI and so on, maybe because of how we put the questions, but this would be interesting to study more in the future, and I think we will hear some more about that today. Influencing factors outside the immediate workplace, how do they work together with the work environment on the workplace, and also those intersectional perspectives which might have to do with gender or age and so on. And last but not least, we should maybe think more about what is called universal design, and I'm sure that we will hear more about that today. So these are a few of the things that we saw.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Maria and Per. Next up is a presentation by Till Halbach on the topic Barriers and Opportunities for Increased Workplace Inclusion of People with Visual Impairments, focusing on digital tools. Till, please go ahead.
Okay, so I am filling in some of the gaps that have been presented already by Maria and Per here. So my name is Till Halbach. I'm with the Norwegian Computing Center, also in Norwegian known as Norstedt and Per. We are, very briefly said, technical industrial research institutes. So we are a foundation, and thus we are independent and non-profit. So we have offices in related to Oslo Science City in Norway, and we conduct applied research. We also do innovation and development projects in the fields of ICT, but also mathematics and statistics. We have a dedicated research group which has been researching the topic digital inclusion for nearly 20 years now. So I will present some of the findings from our research. And what I'm showing as knowledge and findings is based on basically, well, most of it our own studies with diverse user groups, but I've been asked to focus on blind and partially sighted people in this presentation. We have a report, for instance, from 2023, which is called State of Vision Equity. This is a phone survey with 700 vision impaired respondents. These numbers that I'm going to present are currently being worked on. They are updated, so there will be a new report coming out soon, later this year. But I will also, because both of those reports are quite broad, so they touch mainly every aspect in life. I will also show numbers from the 2020 study, which has been focused on the workforce, and this study was done as a phone survey with 300 vision impaired respondents. A few words also about the general situation in Norway when it comes to workplace inclusion. So there is workplace accommodation is mandatory as defined by the Equality and Anti-Discrimination Act. However, there's an important exception, and that is that universal design is not mandatory when it comes to digital workplace tools. So for other solutions like targeting the public, like websites, mobile apps, and so on, universal design would apply, but not for digital workplace tools. Then I also want to mention that the Labor and Welfare Administration provides assistance schemes. For instance, there's one called General and one Secretary. The latter one would be used for to get assistance for reading and writing tasks. And the relation, why I'm mentioning this is because the relation between those assistance schemes and universal design is that the more universal design a solution is, the less of these assistance schemes are needed. So I take one step back now and look at the title once more, and I would like to pick out that I'm focusing on digital tools, and I would like to expand on this. What do I mean when I talk about the digital tools in the workplace? So, and this can be basically anything what you would encounter in a normal work day. So it starts with operating systems like Windows, Mac, Linux, whatnot. It includes office suites, like all the functions that are included there, like calendar, address book, mail, text processing, spreadsheet, slides that I'm using right now, and so on. It also includes administration tools, time management, task planning and tracking, accounting, human resources, etc., etc. And it includes those very neat communication and cooperation applications as the one I'm using right now, like for video meetings, for chat, and so on. We also have the systems that are used to access journals, to access databases like internet applications. I'm mentioning thin client applications and terminal applications. And for particular user groups, also assistive technology and accessibility settings are very important. And I would like to spend a little bit more time on what is assistive technology. So assistive technology, often abbreviated as AT, is specialized equipment, can also be application like software, which is used by those who need it. For instance, screen readers are very often used by blind people, magnifiers by those with low vision, braille readers also used by blind people. Then we have, for those with a hearing impairment, we have hearing aids, hearing loops. People with dyslexia, for instance, use a lot of writing software. We have voice recognition software, which often is used together, well, in order to control particular systems, software and PCs. And we have a number of switches and buttons like specialized hardware, which also is used in order to control the behavior of the system. So those are just examples for assistive technology. And what is also important to know in that respect is that when assistive technology is introduced, then there are a number of related factors that also have to be taken into account. And first of all, for both employers and employees, they have to know what is possible when it comes to assistive technology. What is the employee entitled to? So first, there has to be the knowledge and probably employer has to be advised about what is suitable in a particular situation or for a particular employee. Then, for instance, at least in Norway, there's some bureaucracy involved. So, for instance, you have to apply for the labor administration for this assistive technology. There are some license management involved, and this has to be procured. And after that, it has to be installed, configured, and customized. And later, then, when new software arrives or new upgrades, it has to be maintained and well upgraded. So it has to be integrated with the mainstream tech that we all use. And I have tried to illustrate that in this block diagram here. It's not really important that I go into detail, but I just want to illustrate here that these processes, installation, maintenance, upgrades, and all that, these are usually not straightforward. There's some degree of complexity involved. This is the basic message here. Now, when it comes to the education and training of the employee, who has to be trained about like the possibilities and how to use it and all that, we see that assistive technology often is not covered as a topic, and also that the integration of assistive technology with mainstream tech is not part of what is common as education and training in companies and organizations. And it's also, it's not directly related to assistive technology, the next thing I'm going to say, but the lack of universal design in the education and training often puts a barrier for people who rely on this universal design in order to make use of it, of the training. So it would not say the education and training has the right content, for instance, covering assistive technology, but it's not universally designed, then it's still of no big use for the employee. Technical support here is mentioned because like an organization's support department has often, this is what we found in our research, has often not the right competency about assistive technology and how to integrate that with mainstream tech. And organizations often also argue with when, with security and privacy concerns, when external companies have to be are ordered to install the assistive technology and to maintain them and upgrade them. So all those factors contribute to that assistive technology increases the complexity, and we have seen in various studies that all those digital tools that I mentioned earlier, including assistive technologies, thus can make out barriers for the employee. And this leads me to this nice illustration here, which is two-sided. We are showing the opportunities by means of an open door on the one side and barriers on the others. And technology has a central position in the middle. And if technology works, then we go to the opportunity side. Then we can have inclusion with all the benefits and savings that follow. But when technology malfunctions, then we go to the barrier side, and then we might get exclusion, and we lose the benefits, and the savings will be costs. And this implies costs for not only for individuals, but also for organizations and for society. So now to the key findings from our 2020 survey, which was targeting workplace. And also keep in mind that when I'm reading out those numbers, that those are for visually impaired persons. So those are not for people with disabilities in general. So 2 out of 3 encountered digital barriers and difficulties at the workplace at least once a month, and 3 out of 10 at least once a day. So this says that for 1/3 it's daily. It's a daily problem. And regarding a trend in problems, people reported that the number of digital barriers is increasing. It was at least in 2020. I don't think this has changed that much. 6 out of 10 use their own equipment, including their phone, for instance, their iPhone. And I think here there can be multiple factors to it. One is that they might not be satisfied with the assistive technology given by their employees or by the public administration. It could also mean that they are just more familiar with their own equipment because they use it also privately. Next, for those who encounter barriers, in 9 out of 10 cases, this results in longer task solving. And here we know that 3 out of 4 have reported that they need help from, for instance, colleagues with task solving, and 4 out of 10 cases, this results in unresolved tasks. And now we come to the more severe consequences of that, and that is that 1 out of 10 considers quitting or has already done so. 1 out of 10 considers to work less or has already gone to that or has already decided to work less. Work a higher degree of part-time. And 1 out of 6 has reported that they did not get a job due to technical barriers, for instance, in some job application system. So what you see is not only barriers, but also consequences of barriers. So we have reduced productivity, we have unsolved tasks. So these are, of course, costs for employers, but they are very difficult to measure and to uncover. So I don't think they are mentioned with concrete numbers in socioeconomic analysis. Then we have, for individuals, we have negative feelings, lots of negative feelings, and the following impact on individuals' mental health, which also has an impact for the entire health sector. We have already mentioned the part-time work, the sick leave, and the quitting. We know that those are very high costs for individuals and society. We have already heard the numbers by Per Maria that, and they are quite comparable to Norway. but they are even a little bit worse for visually impaired people. So here, 1 out of 2 visually impaired persons participate in the workforce, only 1 out of 2, as opposed to 8 out of 10 in the society in general. And when it comes to unemployed visually impaired people, 7 out of 10 want to work. And we also know that 1 out of 3 who are employed are open for a high degree of for part-time work, and by that I mean a higher degree of kind of job share. So they want to say they're working 60%, they want to work 80% or even more. This is what I mean by that. So moving on with other consequences, we have less social participation, we have more exclusion, we have loneliness, both of which will have costs for both individuals and society. And we have of course, the costs which come along with discrimination cases and lawsuits and the work by public administration when it comes to regulatory compliance checks. So when we looked at a number of studies during the last 20 to 25 years, we see that the work situation for visually impaired persons has not changed very much. We still have lack of universally designed solutions. We have the difficulties and deficits when it comes to the compatibility between assistive technology and mainstream tech. Educational training is either not universally designed or lacks the proper content, so the quality. And technical support often lacks the proper competency in order to support the employees. So my takeaways here for this topic are those 5 bullet points here. First of all, assistive technology adds considerable complexity for people with impairments, and this complexity means that visually impaired people need to manage their own technology and to compensate for the various technical problems that they encounter during everyday work life. So because of that, they have a great need for digital skills and also educational training. And this not only applies to the mainstream technology, but also to settings, accommodation, customization and other configuration, and it also applies to assistive technology. So we can conclude that visually impaired persons are highly dependent on universal design of educational training and the proper content. And we have also seen numbers that significantly fewer visually impaired persons are part of the workforce as compared to the society in general. The reasons for that are, as explained, multidimensional and compound. Before I close, I would like to say that part of this work is funded by the Research Council of Norway in the Inclusive Digital Application Research Project. And I would like to give you my contact information, which can be found either on our website, nr.no, or on LinkedIn. I'm also showing the QR code for the newsletter of our research group. And thank you for your attention.
Okay, welcome back to the webinar, Work Environment and Inclusion for Persons with Disabilities. Before the break, we enjoyed 2 presentations by Maria Norstedt, Per Germundsson and Halbach. And next we will go to some comments on the findings by Sif Holst from Disabled People's Organizations and Anki Elken from Universal Design in the Workplace. First up is Sif. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for some really great presentations. One of the takeaways I considered after your presentation was the barriers that arise. Also, I am a wheelchair user. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes you don't get the right equipment. Sometimes things break down. I had one workplace where the lift kept breaking down, for example. It's out of anyone's control, but it happens. And I do think that it really relates beautiful to the first presentation where you had the circle with putting individual needs first, but also this importance of flexibility, the adaptation and support, the recognition, the leadership, the colleagues. Because when things happen, whether it's an IT system that doesn't work properly, something that breaks down that needs to be repaired. It's so important to have that leadership and have those colleagues supporting you, finding out, okay, what can we then do? How can we make this possible? How can we manage things before we do it? And I think that's one of the keys. I do think that we have the technology having more opportunities for persons with disability, but the more technology we become dependent on, the more risk is also that when the technology doesn't work properly, then we might suddenly be at a loss compared to colleagues, and there we do need that support. So that's really important takeaway from me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sif. And Anki, would you like to continue?
Absolutely. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, all good.
Super. I think that this valuable research that highlights the barrier and opportunities for persons with disability, what they face in the work life, is really a great focus area, because I think as the researchers like Maria and Per were highlighting, that it takes more research for really knowing the situation on the labor market. For me, I think that, as Sif said, it was a lot of knowledge concerning job matching, active promoting leadership and culture and and recognition, of course. So I'll back Sif on that highlight. But for us working in the Association for Universal Design in Workplace, the remains is the structures that employers and legislation and sustainability reporting can actually influence to be drivers for more inclusiveness in the workplace, and also how reporting as an instrument can be more highlighting integrated what they integrate in everyday organizational practice and measurable outcome. So I think that this research is also a proof of that also a lot of people, I would like to add that, with an academic background in this target group also is really coming forward now and saying that we are locked in. I think that Maria said the glass walls, not only the glass ceiling, and the risk of locking in people with disabilities into the same roles. And the people with the individuals with an academic background where skills are not fully utilized and careers often stall. I think also that the background where we work in Sweden, also it's important to know that it's in the private sector where we can see people with disability. The municipalities, the regional level, and also the government, the Swedish state-owned companies are not reporting what they are doing to be a solution, be a more inclusive employee or labor market. And also I would like to add important dimension that the corporate sustainability reporting directive, CSRD, and the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, ECRS, these frameworks will require employers to demonstrate how they work with equal opportunities and inclusion. This is an opportunity to move from voluntary initiative to measurable long-term structures. So I think that looking forward to the panel discussion on more how to do it. But I'm really satisfied, and also we will be launching and spreading this report, and also the needs for more research. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much to all our lecturers and to everyone who has joined us today. And thank you to the Nordic Welfare Center for this cooperation. I wish you all a pleasant fall season. Goodbye.